Everyone was completely wrong. RSA. Everyone was completely wrong. But wrong about what? There has been a long-running debate over the global economic crisis caused by the COVID pandemic and supply chain difficulties. Various people have expressed their thoughts on the subject. Some believe it has gotten out of hand, while others believe we will recover from this disaster. But everyone is entirely wrong. And if you think I am an idiot to call them wrong, prepare to be blown away, since this sentence is truly spoken by one of the finest economists of our time, who is also a billionaire and has served as co-chief investment officer of the world's largest hedge fund. Yes, I'm referring to Ray Dalio. So, let's take a closer look at what he means when he says everyone was entirely wrong. Same things keep happening, and if you look at their patterns, you can figure out their causes and effects and come up with some general guidelines for how to handle them. This sentence appears to be very straightforward and quite simple, don't you think? However, it has a deep meaning. In fact, we handled such conditions superbly during previous financial and debt crises, and Ray Dalio has developed some sort of formula that we can all benefit from. So, cherish people, but hold on. It isn't that simple. The cycle has 6 stages according to Ray, and I will quickly discuss each one. When debt is utilized to generate productivity revenues in the cycle's early stages, it may then be repaid, which allows the bank to use the money for its own purposes. Seems pretty straightforward, doesn't it? Well, everything is fine during these portions of the cycle where asset prices are rising. And then you reach the bubble phase of the cycle. Everyone starts extrapolating past events because asset prices are increasing. This is the phase when things start to get exploited. People start taking more and more loan for their own benefit and bank is unable to bear it. The banks lend money and use leverage because they believe that asset values will continue to rise. When we do the math, it may become clear that the bank won't be able to maintain that level of debt growth. And at that point, the cycle enters its third phase, or the top. When central banks start to tighten monetary policy and apply the brakes at that point in the cycle, you typically enter the down leg. When interest rates reach 0%, you enter the depression phase of the cycle since monetary policy doesn't typically work at that point. This is the point where things start to get bad, and when I say bad, it means really bad. There have only been 2 instances in the century's history of debt crisis where interest rates hit 0. And in both of those instances, the central bank had to print money and switch to a different type of monetary policy. Therefore, I believe that the period we are in now is very similar to the period that we were in the 1930s. And if any of you know what happened in the 1930s crisis, they are gonna start thinking about how to properly use their assets, because the situations was not good at that time. The value of those financial assets created by the banks, however, leads to a recovery. But it also causes interest rates to fall to 0 or close to 0 wherever they are around the world. In this case, the purchase of $15 trillion worth of financial assets, which America actually did, had pushed up those prices and lowered interest rates, which has led to populism and an increase in asset prices. I know many of you are unaware of populism, but don't worry, this is why we are here. The term populism refers to a certain political movement. Typically, populists seek to distinguish between the elites and the general populace. Mostly rich people are considered to be part of the elite class in this environment. People who have held governmental positions for a long time may also be referred to as the establishment by populists, who also view them as elites. The prevailing belief that the elites have certain privileges and that the common people do not or are unable to enjoy such privileges is a core component of populism. The populists think that they are the voice of common people and they also try to fight for their rights. The cycle fosters populism because it widens the gap between the rich and the poor. People with greater financial assets enjoy an increase in the value of those assets, as well as other wealth-related benefits. The top 1% of the population currently has a wealth gap that is roughly equal to that of the bottom 90% of the population combined, which is very similar to the situations in the late 1930s when we had that stimulation. As a result, we are now in the later stage of the cycle. Asset prices are rising, interest rates are low, and monetary policy tightening is starting, very much like it did in 1937. So, this is the end result Ray Dalio has come up with. Being in a situation similar to 1937 only indicates that a major crisis is imminent and that tragedy is actually unavoidable. The real question is, when? When are we going to face the crisis? And how are we going to save ourselves from this? I am pretty sure Ray Dalio is going to come up with the solutions, and if he does, you know where to find it. So keep connected with us.